Hi guys, Bill again. Yeah, strange things are happening down in that there London town. The murder rates exceeded New York's for the first time ever, in spite of ever increasing restrictions on the sale or possession of everything from corrosive chemicals down to knives. We've got some of the strictest gun control laws in the Western world. I think we're beaten by Jamaica and Honduras, that's about it. And we've got a raft of laws preventing us, well, at least punishing us, for committing thought crimes and hate speech. And you just got to look at Goodfella, or Dankula, Christ, or Tommy Robinson. The courts aren't fucking around when pale-skinned Brits step out of line. And yet violent crime is on the rise. The Guardian wrote an article telling us that it's fine, that there's much worse cities in England. I mean, just look at Manchester. The year isn't over. Yeah, perhaps New York will win again. Ah, as long as the religion of peace doesn't make another showing. Very reassuring, I don't think. Now, I could give you my opinion on why the city with the largest influx of non-European immigrants in Britain is also the one with the largest increase year on year of violent and sexual crime. But there's those hate speech laws to consider, you know. I'm going to leave them to one side for a wee while. I'll talk exclusively about straight, white males. I mean, that's got to keep the perpetually offended happy, eh? Maybe not. A couple of weeks back, travellers were building a shrine to one of their community's members outside of a house where he was fatally stabbed. The local vigilantes were desecrating it, tearing down the flowers, removing balloons and children's toys, and tearing up poorly written but heartfelt eulogies. The local police turned up in force to prevent any more damage being done to the tributes. Now, if you don't know, travellers is a sort of catch-all term we use in Britain to describe nomadic communities who move around the country in convoys of lorries, 4x4s and large mobile homes. They set up temporary trailer parks and they stay in a place for a wee while before they move on again. Some people call them gypsies. They seem to have some kind of romantic view of them as the modern equivalent of the Romany people wandering Europe in their beautiful painted wagons. Some people have got less complimentary names for them, and the reason for that is their concerns about the large numbers of strangers just appearing uninvited and unannounced, setting up camp on common ground and even private land sometimes. There's a popular notion that crime rates are going to soar and that the site they choose is going to be absolutely trashed by heavy vehicles and a large number of people living in close proximity with no sanitary provisions or infrastructure. I'll leave you an article below highlighting the aftermath of a short stay by travellers in a Kentish village. Give you an idea of, what happens really. Like I say, the public perception of travellers isn't always a favourable. Now, not all travellers are out to wreck the joint, and nor are all travellers violent thieves. But the reputation is sometimes accurate. Heather Green isn't anywhere near a traveller camp. But a couple of weeks ago, in the early hours of a Wednesday morning, two thieving scumbags forced their way into the home of Richard Osborne Brooks, a 78-year-old pensioner. One of them, Henry Vincent, a career criminal with a history of preying on pensioners, forced Richard into his kitchen, and the other one, identified as Billy Jeeves, a 28-year-old, again with a string of convictions for theft and defrauding older people, headed upstairs where Richard's wife Maureen was sleeping in bed. Now there was a struggle. Vincent came out worst and he retreated out of the house with a stab wound to his chest. Jeeves just abandoned him. He ran away drove off in their getaway vehicle, and later he torched the getaway van. As far as I know, he's still in hiding. Vincent, in spite of the best efforts of paramedics and the local hospital, died of his wounds just before 4 a.m. Oh dear. How sad. Never mind. Now the boys in blue didn't waste a moment. They swooped down on the invaded home. They bundled Richard out, charged him with murder, and took him down to the station, where they interrogated him until dawn. Gods only know what Maureen thought of it. I mean, one report said that she suffers from dementia. Can you imagine what it must have been like for her to see her home violated, Richard drenched in blood, and a bunch of Lewisham's finest dragging her husband off to jail? She must have been bloody terrified. Now I know what you're thinking. Why charge them before they carried out any kind of investigation? It may have been as simple as Richard refusing to leave his presumably extremely upset wife. A formal charge would give the police the right to forcibly remove Richard from his house and take him to some place where they could interview him. Now I'd like to think that's all it was, because the alternative is bloody horrifying. What if the police actually intended to make an example of Richard? What if their guidance in these situations is to prosecute the victims with the full force of the law? What if they're under orders to punish any attempt by British citizens to defend themselves? It's not without precedent. During the London Bridge attack, police officers armed with tasers, batons, pepper sprays, body armour, those bloody great tits they wear on their head, they went into the pubs and clubs on the terrorist route, and they forced the public to lie down on the floor. Now, there was an armed response unit en route. They got there in just over 8 minutes. They slaughtered all 3 terrorists in short order, and that's a great effort by a slick, superbly trained and highly effective team. Even so, dozens, maybe scores of men who could have armed themselves with bottles, chairs, glasses, tables, were prevented from using any of that stuff by the London Metropolitan Police. 3 maniacs were busy hacking innocent victims up like butcher meat, just yards from where they were being forced to lie on their bellies like frightened children. Now, in an age of instant communication, this message went worldwide. Londoners are such fannies that they need the police to protect them, even when the threat is armed with kitchenware. Back to Richard. There was a massive public outcry when it became apparent that Richard had actually been charged. Now, I don't care what our police or politicians think. The British public still have a well-developed sense of right and wrong. The Met were forced to drop the charge on Friday, more than 48 hours after they arrested Richard and kept him locked up like a common criminal. Now, apparently, according to a police spokesman after the release, he was charged for his own good. George Orwell would have been proud. His nightmare's just beginning though. He's been moved out of his house, apparently for his own safety. His home's been boarded up and it's been covered in closed-circuit television systems. The traveller community have been running their mouth off about revenge attacks, and the big brave bastards have even sent their women and kids round to build a shrine to the dead scumbag right outside Richard and Maureen's door. Now, instead of intervening and stopping that blatant provocation of a man who's suffered more than enough, they made bland statements about travellers behaving in a responsible manner and not wanting anyone to feel intimidated in the local community, while they had police officers standing ready to arrest anybody taking down any more of the floral tributes. Again, the message is crystal clear. In this case, travellers are allowed to come to an area where they don't live and have no legitimate reason to be. They can cover a man's property in reminders that they know who he killed, and the police will prosecute anyone showing him any kind of physical support. Bravo. Bravo. There was a circular released by the Ministry of Justice back in April 13. Papers are all quoting that just now. Basically, it was supposed to give the British householder clarification on their rights in the event of a home invasion. They're quoting the circular. They're not quoting the content, because it's not exactly stand your ground. The example that the circular gives is of a man armed with a knife breaking into a house. Now, the householder has disarmed him, because obviously that's a piece of piss to do when some violent thug's coming at you with a knife. But after he's disarmed the violent thug, apparently, if he was to punch the scumbag on the way out, the court probably wouldn't consider that excessive force. Probably. How very British. We legislated our gun ownership rights away after our first shooting after our first mass shooting back in 1987. Now, since we disarmed ourselves, we've had 2 more of those, and gun crime is worse now than it's ever been. Our murder rate is soaring. Our little girls are being raped en masse. Violent crime is becoming almost as acceptable as terrorist attacks, and I can't believe I just said that terrorist attacks are becoming an acceptable part of British life. This shite has gone on for long enough. The police are determined to protect their position as the only people in a damn country allowed to do anything when violent thugs attack. That a donut munching swine either can't or won't make any effort to protect us. They're far too busy hunting down hate crimes on social media. What we need is a radical change. We need a British equivalent of stand your ground. A clear, unequivocal right to take whatever measures are necessary to defend our families and our homes. And if we get that, we're going to need a tool for the job. Now, there's a lot of options available, but personally, I would consider a lightweight, accurate, highly reliable, user-friendly firearm to be ideal. Now, nothing too excessive. There's no need for elephant guns or Desert Eagles. An AR-15 would do me just fine. Laters, people.